the producer of the show this morning as we were getting ready to go do some TV work at Fox 9. I said, Final Four weekend, men's side, of course, Saturday, and then the championship game Monday night. I wonder if our old pal Richard Pitino might be willing to give us a little scouting report on the Final Four. And sure enough, I asked Guardsy. Guardsy said, let me check. And the answer came back to the affirmative. So Richard now joins us via the Connecticut Water Systems Hotline. Welcome back to the program. It's been way too long since we've bugged you, I think. It's at least the way I look at it. And I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing great. I thought we were talking NIT Final Four, but I can talk both if you'd like, because I am an NIT champion, but I appreciate you having me.
So always self-deprecating to a fault. That's one of the great Richard Pitino strengths. That is for sure. Speaking of that, I'm not here to talk about your dad, trust me, but it does pop into my head that I think your dad's reputation historically, when it comes to teams faltering or not, taking another step, is he's impatient, he's frustrated. And I thought he was, and I don't know if this is a change in him or you would tell me he's been this way all along. His level of graciousness and his philosophical approach to his team getting eliminated when they did, I was impressed with that. And I was, maybe I shouldn't have been surprised. Has he always been like that? Or do you think he's changed a little bit as he's gone through all the wars that he's gone through to a place where maybe his approach is a little different than it might have been when he was, 40 years younger?
Yeah, I think he's definitely softened a little bit. I think if you go to a practice, he's certainly still very, I don't want to say in your face, but he's very, very intense. But he's definitely mellowed with the other things. I think you just have to, I just think the climate is so much different right now. But, it's also end of the year. Like, it's hard to have sour grapes from the last game. It's a little different than a February game.
Yeah.
But he also had I got a chance to spend San Diego, Big East tournament, DC. I kind of followed them around, and he had a really, really good group of guys. They were a good team, but when you talk about high character, easy to coach. So I think more than anything, his tone was really grateful. He had the kid Zuby Ejiofor, he was a coach's dream. So I think more than anything, probably appreciative, but also probably mellowed out throughout the years.
Do any coaches go to the Final Four anymore? Because once upon a time, I remember when I was covering them more in my newspaper phase, they're all over the place at the Final Four. Coaches who were not participating, but still going. And I feel like there aren't hardly any that go anymore. Do you go? Do any coaches who are not participating go to the Final Four any longer?
If my son is 11 years old, and if he was like, hey, I want to go, I would certainly go. The problem is you just finish a long season. You're trying to gear up for this crazy portal that's going to hit on Tuesday, which I told Guardsy this. It opens Tuesday, but it's open right now. So it's just kind of hard with the timing part of it. So, coaches definitely go. But if you can get a little break Easter weekend before, I think a lot of coaches are opting to do that because chaos is about to ensue here for the next probably 5-6 weeks for everybody.
Is there any way to prepare for that level of chaos?
You got to try to get as much money as you possibly can. And I'm not even being facetious.
Yeah.
There's ways to do this, right? And the first thing is to go high school recruiting. And I can't believe I'm talking this way, but players traditionally are a little bit cheaper, high school recruiting.
Yeah, right.
And then you've got your retention piece, which maybe you can get a little bit of a hometown discount or whatever. The portal is by far the most expensive way to go, because the players got amazing leverage, so, every coach has been begging and pleading all year to get as much money as they possibly can. We all thought there was going to be this cap, which, is supposed to be $22 million, but then you're reading that, SEC football teams are spending over $40 million, Ohio State and so on. So honestly, the way to do it is just to try to educate, whether it's your AD, your president, boosters, just to get them to understand, like, okay, if this is what you want, this is the cost that goes into winning. And then the other thing, too, is, these players all have agents. The agents are sending you legit rosters of 20 players that they have on their roster. So you're trying to watch as much film as you can. And it's really not recruiting as much as it is decision-making. Yeah. Deciding who to invest in and deciding, when to kind of walk away, because everybody's going to have more money than you. You just got to spend your money wisely.
The conventional wisdom is that the Michigan-Arizona game is the national championship game. That's always been, kind of trite, I think, and overdone for, numerous reasons. We can point to lots of times where a certain semifinal game is viewed as the game, and then the team that wins that game ends up losing in the national championship. But give me a sense of, do you think there is some belief that on paper Michigan and Arizona are the two best teams, or not so much?
I think they're definitely the two best teams, but, kind of to your point, like that's going to be a high level game. Not to suggest that any Final Four game isn't, but who knows how much that takes out of either team. Michigan has by far been the most impressive team. Arizona is very unique because they don't shoot the three, in this modern day analytics, shoot a million threes, offensive rebound. They don't do it. They're the old school Gonzaga flow. They play two bigs. They're getting to the basket, which is the highest percentage shot, as silly as it sounds. And so they're going to shoot a high percentage because they're going to play through their bigs. They're going to get to the free throw line. So that's obviously a very fascinating game. I think Michigan has got a little bit more firepower. Yaxel Lundenberg is obviously a terrific player as well. So that'll be a great game. But, I think UConn's interesting. I played him 3 times, and John Shire actually called me after that Duke St. John's game. He said, "What are your thoughts?" And I said, "Well, obviously don't watch the 3 games that we played because they blew us out 3 games in a row." But they've got a really good blend. They've got a terrific young player in Braylon Mullins who made the 3. They got Terrace Reed, who might be the best big guy in the country. So it'll be interesting to see if UConn gets past Illinois. That could be a game. But yeah, certainly I think Michigan and Arizona are the 2 best teams.
So, I want to ask you, you mentioned how much you know certainly about UConn, played against them. The Danny Hurley story fascinates me because obviously he's a terrific coach. I think that's beyond any measure of debate. But the debate comes into deportment, right? And the old issue of, some of the stuff he does can be kind of difficult to watch if you're a fan, maybe a fan who doesn't have a rooting interest in either team. But my question is it annoying to coach against him when he does some of the things he does? The old basis of, it's like the officials grade on a different curve, that if a guy does the same stuff all the time, he gets away with it more because they don't really know what to do with what he does. Is that frustrating to coach against, or give me a sense of what that's like?
Well, not even being sarcastic, but a lot of this year was frustrating for me because we're rebuilding and really starting over. So none of our games were like really, it was over before it started, honestly. But here's what I'll say about Dan Hurley for anybody who knows him. Like, he's a really, really good guy. He really is. And I actually think he's mellowed in a lot of ways. Does he go a little overboard with the refs at times? Yeah, I think he would even admit it. But, he's trying to give his team an edge. Is it necessary? I don't really think so. For every Dan Hurley who's all over the refs, you could talk about the Brad Stevens. Like, right. It just swings in cycles. And it's like now the new thing is be hard on your players, and society is soft, and these coaches are hard on their players and they're winning. So, it's just to each their own. Like, when I got in the league in the Big Ten, Brad Underwood was really, really in every player's face, scowling on the sidelines. He's like the happiest guy in the world right now. Now he's in the Final Four. So, whatever works for him. But I will tell you this, like, Dan Hurley is, he's for his players. He's a fierce competitor. He's always been great with me. So, I think he goes a little crazy at times. But I think he's being competitive. And I don't think the one thing that I think gets a little bit twisted with him is he's not really doing it at his players. He's really doing it at his refs.
Yeah.
So obviously refs are people too. But I think he's gotten a lot better with it. I think it was an eye-opening experience for him. I believe it was last year in Maui, where he got a crucial technical that cost him the game. And, I believe that last year really helped him. Not that he needs help. I mean, the guy's gone to 3 Final Fours in 4 years, but I actually think he's mellowed a little bit more than people probably notice.
Richard Pitino, kind enough to join us. Did you ever think UConn was going to beat Duke until they literally did?
Well, I mean, that last play was heartbreaking, honestly, as a coach. You're like, oh my God, I feel so bad for the Boozer kid. I've always thought UConn, when I look at a model, like I think coaches are trying to figure out a model of how to build a team. And I always thought it was one of the most complete teams. But Duke, very, very talented. I saw them in person, and it was just, Boozer is a top 3 pick. The kid Evans was phenomenal against St. John's in the game that I watched. But, I always thought UConn, you've got a potential first-round pick in Braylon Mullins. You've got Caravan, who's just won so many games. I believe Terrace Reed is maybe the most underrated player the guy had 27 rebounds in a game, which is unheard of. But it was a phenomenal comeback. And, that was a storybook type ending. That's one of the best shots I've seen to end a game. You feel bad for the Duke guys. But, UConn really is, when you talk about stories in sports, and I know you're an Indiana guy. Indiana football is by far the most amazing thing I've ever seen. But for UConn, this is not a knock on UConn, but UConn is not like this beautiful, amazing place with unbelievable facilities. But the culture, starting with Jim Calhoun and Gino Auriemma, they've just got this competitive will to go win and this toughness that you can never count them out.
Yeah, that's well said. Give me the lowdown on the Balkan Brigade for Illinois. Is it a pipeline? Is it something is it just coincidence, or what's that all about?
No, it's a shift again. Like I kind of said with Brad Underwood. He's done a really good job of just kind of reinventing the way that he plays. When I was in the league, they ran this thing called spread offense, where they'd really play off the kind of the elbow high post. Now they're just spreading it out. They've got great size. They run a lot of just ball screen, shoot a lot of threes. I actually talked to Brad early in the season about his offensive rebounding philosophy, because the one thing you have to do with them is when they shoot a 3, they send 4 guys to the glass. They don't worry about transition defense. So, they have a very, very influential agent who's from over there, who they must have a great relationship with. And they brought those guys over. I had a Serbian kid this year who started for me, and I tell you what, tough, smart, know how to play the game of basketball. So when you watch Illinois play, just their size, every team in the Final Four right now, everybody copies everybody, and you're going to start to see people really try to go back to that true center, 7 foot, 6'10", 6'11" guys. All across, and Illinois has done an amazing job of reinventing themselves and going overseas, and it's really paying off.
Is the one of the, I guess, grand declarations from this tournament on the men's side certainly is that Cinderella has been officially declared dead. We know, I think Texas was an 11 seed, but it's University of Texas, so people don't really count it that way. So. And the assumption is it's because of the way the pipeline is set up now and the fact that players can go wherever they want as often as they want to go. Do you agree with that? Do you think it's overdone? Or do you think that's pretty much the direction everything's going, that's pretty much over? That the mid-major run that we all think is such an important part of the texture of the big dance is just, it's going away. It's far less likely than ever that we're going to see those stories on a regular basis.
Yeah, I 100% agree with it. And I was kind of in the middle of it. New Mexico, I don't know if I'd call it a mid-major, but it's probably like a high mid-major. But it's a really, really good basketball job. We would get $15,000 a game. But we ended the season, we won the league, we won a game in the NCAA tournament. We were older, we were talented, we had a chance to beat Michigan State. They got us in the end. And I had player meetings the next day. The portal wasn't open. And I had 3 of my players already tell me about the deals that they had that were, 4 to 5 times what we were able to pay them. And so I wasn't bitter about it by any means, but one of the reasons why I left New Mexico was that it was just, I did not see a ceiling as it pertained to NIL. Like Xavier, we were one of the lower teams in the Big East, and we're correcting it in a big way from an NIL standpoint, but that would have been the highest in the Mountain West or any of these programs, and it wouldn't even be close. So, it is sad to see, because the mid-majors, for the most part, when they went on their runs, it was kids who maybe not as talented, but they had been in the program for 3 or 4 years. But I just don't see a path anymore for them unless it's the, winning the conference tournament. But I think it's sad, but I will also say this, like, the game is as good as it's ever been. Mm-hmm. Now, the structure and everything that's going on is pure chaos, and I'm not sure how sustainable it is. But when you turn on the TV, like, it is really, really good basketball. But, I think everybody, coaches, players, they're just going to run to the Power 4, and then Big East would be the Power 5, because those are where the resources are. We all know as coaches, like, you can't win unless you have players, and you can't get players unless you have money, and you can't retain players unless you have money. See, that's the thing people have to understand is you may have a good young team, but the kids are going to move on, especially with the rules right now, unless you have that money to retain them, because their value is so high. So it is sad to see, but, the ratings are up. The quality of play is phenomenal. Kids aren't jumping to the NBA anymore. They almost prefer to stay in college because they're understanding there's more money there. Yep. But I think the mid-majors are in a tough spot right now. I think expanding the tournament is not going to help the mid-majors by any means, because the net rankings also favor, I remember when I was in the Big Ten, I looked at, our games, and we had a quad 1 opportunity every game for like 2.5 months. And when I was at New Mexico, you maybe had at San Diego State, and that was about it. So, it is what it is. I don't think it's changing, especially because the popularity right now is so high. So, it always comes down to dollars and cents, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon. You
mentioned the European pipeline, and I don't know if you and I have talked about this before. I've talked about it a lot, certainly with other people, including Tim Conley, who, of course, as you know, still runs the Timberwolves, and others. And the popular notion is that players are developed differently in the European system. And when I say differently, there are a lot of American basketball people who think they're developed better, that there is more of an understanding of integrating within a team, less perhaps about individual performance, and that it is almost eye-opening. In fact, when I've talked about this last time I talked about this with Conley, there was even discussion here. He was involved in a group that was almost trying to bring some of those qualities to some of the academies here, that if there's something that could be borrowed from there. So this is part of what you do. Do you think there's some truth to that? Do you think that's kind of oversimplified, or what do you say to that?
Well, I would say this. They're more prepared because these guys have played professional basketball. Yep. They're not true freshmen when like Illinois, I forget the kid's name, but like the kid's like 23 years old and he's a freshman. So the kind of the progression for them is they play for these club teams, and then they're playing professionally against adults. So, I wouldn't totally crap on like the American system, because these guys that you're watching in high school and in AAU, they're playing against 17-year-old players, 18-year-old players. Yeah. So they're not growing up as fast. And, not to label anybody, but, some of the European players may not be as athletic, so they have to use the fundamentals, certainly, to advance themselves. And, because like I said before, I've got 2 and they're as fundamentally sound as it gets. But I just think everything is, the system is so evolving. And if our players here, like if you said a high school kid could go to the G League play for a couple of years, then he goes to college. Those guys would be more ready than the pure high school kids coming out of Hopkins or whatever.
Sure.
So a lot of it is just those players are older. And, a lot of the kids coming out of the American system may be 18, 19 years old, but they're also terrific as well. And I think the NBA game has evolved. Like, it's not as much isolation basketball. Yeah. It's way more movement. So I think everybody's kind of pulling from everybody in a big way.
Interesting question from a listener, Joe, out of Tucson. He writes, would love to hear Coach Pitino's thoughts on Tommy Lloyd, who just signed a huge extension with Arizona today, thus removing himself from North Carolina consideration. His new contract pays over $7 million per year, and he no longer reports to the AD with whom he had clashed. Instead,
what a dream. What a dream, yeah.
Directly to the school president. So Joe wants to know what you think about that. Perhaps you've already kind of showed your hand.
Yeah, if I had that with Mark Boyle, I'd still be the head coach of Minnesota. I wouldn't have to deal with him. No, I'm just kidding. Mark and I are still friends. Yeah, it's interesting. I've never seen that one before, so I don't know the inner workings of everything there.
Yeah.
AD's got hard jobs right now. I've always kind of said with ADs, and I've had some really good ADs, and I like my AD here, but they're starting to feel the pressure that head coaches have always felt.
Yeah. Because
everybody's on them about NIL and all these things, and I think they're trying to figure out kind of their role in this whole thing, how involved they need to be, and so on. So, I don't know the inner workings of that. I've never seen that before, where he doesn't have to report to the AD. But I will say this, like, Arizona's a premier job. Tommy Lloyd's a terrific coach. I always laugh about, the incessant asking these coaches, it's like, what is the right answer? Because I'm sure he's trying to figure out a contract situation in Arizona. I'm sure he's got UNC, who's also coming at him. He's got leverage right now, so he's trying to make the Arizona program and his situation better. But you know what? Honestly, like, that's how you improve. Your department, your basketball program is when you have these situations like Tommy Lloyd did. And I haven't had it much in my career. I had it at New Mexico, and we were able to really, I ended up leaving, but we were really able to put some things in place that had never been put there before. So obviously Tommy Lloyd, everybody's trying to figure it out, right? It's like, who's in charge now? Do we have GMs? Do we have presidents?
Yeah.
And I think that's the one knock on the NBA with a lot of these coaches is they don't feel like they have control. So, I don't know if Tommy Lloyd or any of these coaches are feeling like that's slipping from them a little bit. And so he had opportunity to kind of plant his flag and, kind of say, hey, this is what we need to do moving forward. And, more power to him, I guess.
Two last things. Do you literally, and I'm not being facetious here, do you literally have an assistant coach who is in charge of counting how many players you have on the floor at any given moment?
Man, that was brutal. I feel so bad.
Yeah.
And that just shows you, too, with Fred Hoiberg, this guy had an amazing year, right?
Yep.
I mean, as good as it gets for Nebraska. They were patient with him. It took him, I think, 5 years to get the NCAA tournament. He's got this magical season, wins his first game. And I was watching and I was like, what is going on right here? But I don't know if I specifically do. But I will say, like, you got to be really locked in on, like, these little things at the end of game. Like, we've seen it. I think it was the Dayton game. Player ran on the court when they scored at the buzzer, the Illinois thing. So, a learning moment. You hate to see it. I'm not sure if I've ever seen that situation in such a crucial play, but I think all coaches watch towards the end of the year and they kind of put some notes together and some film together to get with their staff about it. And certainly I will do that because you hate to see that.
Lastly, you mentioned, this was I assume not an easy year for you. And I don't know if it's what you expected or you got there and you said, oh, there's some stuff here that I didn't really realize. It's going to be a little more challenging early than I thought. How did you handle the year at Xavier? How tough was it for you? Where are you in this whole process?
People ask me all the time, what did I learn from Minnesota? Because I have to always apologize for getting fired at Minnesota to everybody. They're like, oh, and I always say this, and I'm not saying Minnesota is a bad job. I'm not. And there are definitely things that I could have done better to have more consistency. But what I will say is if I had one regret, and I'm assuming Nico does this, but you've got to push the administration and everybody to compete at the top of the league. And if you want me to beat Michigan State, if you want me to beat Indiana, if you want me to beat Illinois, Ohio State, Wisconsin, like, this is what we need. And so when I got to Xavier, NIL is obviously the most important thing, right? I mean, it's all that matters right now. And I will say financially, the market like tripled right when I got the job, because everybody was trying to front load their pay before that house settlement went in. And I think the mistake that Xavier made was we just didn't have the ability to go up like others did. I'm not saying it's a mistake. We may not have had the funds,
right?
But I was very, very patient this year. You know, we inherited no players. We inherited a bottom 3 NIL in the league. And obviously I coached the team, tried to kind of establish my culture as best you can when, you know, in this environment. But I think the best thing I did was really, really inform everybody of what the market looks like. And if, you know, Xavier's it's a crazy stat, but Xavier and Tennessee are the 2 teams that have won the most tournament games and never been to a Final Four. So the expectations are very, very high. When I got the job, people were saying to me, we got to go to a Final Four. And I explained to them graciously, like, this is what it's going to cost. So, no, I kept my sanity, certainly. I knew it'd be a rebuild, and especially when you have to add 12 transfers with kind of a limited budget, it's obviously hard to do. You know, if you have to get a whole new team with transfers, you have to have a lot of money. You really do. And I'm sure Nico's dealing with it, and we've certainly corrected it. So, this was a long-term decision for me. New Mexico was left behind in the new Pac-12, and I just felt like, from a stability standpoint with the Big East, obviously it's not a Power 4, but it's certainly pretty stable. Who knows where it all goes? But I really believe, like, we're going to build for year 2 and year 3, and, we'll make a big jump this year. So I kept my sanity.
Speaking of that, this is, I think, fairly breaking news out of Washington, D.C. President Donald Trump has signed an executive order in an effort to save college sports, in his words, an intervention at the highest level aimed at federally regulating NIL collectives, limiting transfer movement, capping player eligibility, and enacting funding requirements for the Olympics and women's sports, the White House announced. He mentions the return of the NCAA's one-time transfer rule as well, which, of course, has previously been deemed unlawful. Under the revised transfer rules, athletes would be allowed to transfer once without penalty, but a second transfer would trigger an automatic redshirt season. The order also redefines eligibility with a 5-for-5 model. Athletes have 5 years to play 5 seasons. So, again, there's a lot of details to be worked out here, and this doesn't necessarily mean it's going to hold up. But what's your kind of gut reaction to this?
Well, I think it's a good idea. Now, I would say the timing of it, I'm not sure Donald Trump knows when the transfer portal opens and all those things, but I don't think there's any way to limit their pay. I think NIL started, it was a great concept of, a kid can get a marketing deal, with, Kroger, Skyline Chili. I'm talking like a Cincinnati guy or whatever, but now it's pay for play, and it's like Major League Baseball. The Dodgers are spending $400 million, and, who knows what the Twins are paying or whatever. But I do think if there's one thing that could really, really fix it is what he is proposing, which is the 5 years and the one-time transfer. Now, it's just so hard from a timing standpoint with all of these guys. There'll be more lawsuits. But I still think, like, I have no problem paying them, but we still are, academic institutions that want to see these guys graduate. And we've moved so far away from that. Yeah. I mean, we don't even talk about it anymore in recruiting, which is sad. So if you can fix one thing, I think that, you give them 5 years to play. You guys figure it out. One-time transfer. If a coach leaves or whatever, you can get an exception. But the timing of the Trump thing obviously would really throw a huge wrench in everybody's plans. So yeah. I don't know if that would pass right away, but I do think we're going to need congressional, support of some sort because the NCAA is sitting there saying like, look at what you all created. Like everybody wants to blame the NCAA and they're by no means perfect, but what are they going to do?
Mm-hmm.
They're losing every lawsuit. So the only way to do it is for somebody to step in because this is turned into pro sports. There is no salary cap. And, just like everybody's annoyed with the Dodgers right now, like that's the way it's going to be in college basketball until somebody fixes it. So, hopefully, we can get our team together before they change all these rules because we got our eyes on some transfers. But I do think, we need DC to certainly step in and try to regulate this and I feel bad for the other sports. I do believe like you're going to start seeing other sports cut because schools don't have the money to do it. And that's not what it's all about either.
Just so you know, you're not wasting your time with us. This text came in from a hockey guy. Southside goalie guy writes, thank you so much for having Richard Pitino on. He is amazing. I hope we can have him on more frequently. He is so sincere and humble, yet frank. It is very refreshing in the crazy landscape of college athletics. How about that? It's quite
That's
a nice
what it's all about right there. Yeah. That's why I did it.
That's it. I knew you knew.
I will say when I see people from Minnesota, nobody ever brings up my historic NIT championship or my 2 NCAA tournaments. 99% of the time they say to me, we love John Barrera. I said, oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
Maybe I'll get into radio when I'm out of coaching.
Well, you're going to be able to do that if you want to at some later date. And then you won't have to worry about snarky columnists and talk show hosts questioning why Pitino didn't take the time out or why he squandered this situation. Then you would just be the one doing all the snarky stuff. That's the beauty of it.
It's a lot of fun, isn't it?
It really is.
That's why you guys have been able to do it for 30 years.
Or more. You're right. Good to catch up, my friend. I really do appreciate the time, and we'll try to stay in touch. Thanks, Richard.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Much appreciated. Richard Pitino, former Gopher men's basketball coach, now at Xavier. We went long, but it's impossible not to go long when you have a guest as good as Richard Pitino. Dr. Dan's Inbox? That just might be coming up next.
Wolves.
We will monitor your Minnesota Twins home opener for whatever that is worth. Late start, but I believe they're through 2 innings now. About 4 miles from our location here in St. Louis Park. Twins trailing the Tampa Bay Rays 2-0 early. 2-0. Bailey Ober on the mound for your favorite baseball team. We're going to get at least one Dr. Dan's Inbox letter in. We're going to get caught up because we went long with Richard Pitino, but keep the letters coming. There's still time to offer your contributions. JG at KFAN.com.
It's time for Dr. Dan's Inbox.
Letters. Oh, we get letters. We get your letters every day.
Dear Dr. Dan, it has been said, with great power comes great responsibility.
Ooh.
Believe you me, we have great power, and while losing a sponsorship for the M Wild Arena was tough, we didn't take the opportunity to be petty, but yet honored that responsibility. By a similar yet different side of the same coin, we felt it was our responsibility to protect good-natured Minnesotans from not good baseball.
Wow.
Plot foiled, but we certainly tried. This from X Energy. I want to fill people in on what happened.
The implication there, the suggestion is that the power failure that hit Target Field and that part of downtown, but mainly Target Field, starting at, what was it, just past 2?
It was just before that. Yeah, right around 2.
Right around 2, or a little bit before that. That got a lot of people's attention and ultimately forced the delay of the regular start time in the opener, which I think was supposed to be 3:15.
Yeah, 3:10,
3:05, whatever it was. Yep. It gets moved back to 4:05 for that reason. And it is one of those jokes. Wait, the Twins, for their home opener, have a power failure? You really can't make this stuff up. And no, you really can't. And in this case, you didn't have to make it up. So everybody became Shecky Green. Everybody did their cheap jokes about, power failure, Twins. Yeah, that makes some sense. I went with the old reliable. Good news and bad news. The good news is the power has been restored at Target Field. The bad news is the target has been restored, or I should say the power has been restored at Target Field. So we've all done it, and I'm not surprised that we also got some letters to that effect. Now, early indications are maybe the Twins would have been better off with a longer power failure, but the problem was you got to get this game in. We got no off days. So as it is, the betting money is tomorrow's game might well be postponed.
It's in peril.
Into a Sunday doubleheader because the forecast is not very encouraging for tomorrow, whether there is power or not. I will say, Dr. Dan will say, based on the crowd shots I've seen, the Lavelle prediction of maybe as many as 30,000 in the arena seems a bit, shall we say, silver linings-ish.
Frustrating.
I'm not sure I see quite that many people, although I do like the... Is this a giveaway? The beautiful people seats behind home plate.
The hats.
They're all wearing the kind of a powder blue Twins
Beanie.
ski caps almost.
Yes.
I like those. Those look pretty nice, actually.
They look
Was
great.
that for today? Was that a...
Yes.
Okay, that was it.
I think they're aware of the weather potential that it could be today.
The $2 beers apparently have been extended. I don't know, but is that already over? Was it just the first 2 innings?
First 2 innings, so that's over now.
Okay, so that's over.
So everyone's sobering up now.
Reality is setting in. And we've got Junior Caminero at the plate right now for Tampa Bay, and he is wearing over his mouth and nose the kind of almost ski gear that one might expect going down Buck Hill. He is very well protected from the elements that apparently are rather chilly.
When we come back, we have letters from K. Cousins, A. Silver, and just a few from T. Polad.
Had a hunch.
It's time for Dr. Dan's Inbox.
Oh, we get letters.
Dr. Dan's Inbox Part 2. I'm assuming eventually we are going to have a top 5 at 5.
I'll be ready.
We'll have more details on the latest news regarding Anthony Edwards, which is he should be available tonight, right after earlier being listed as questionable. He is available. Is that what we are hearing?
About 30 minutes ago, that was the latest injury update. I think the injury update comes out, about 2.5 hours before the game? Whatever
That's,
it is. 90 minutes before.
And by the way, that game, we're out at 6 for Wolves basketball action, Dateline, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Brian Gas.
Dear Dr. Dan, where's the obligatory "we didn't need him" tweet? Guess the QB whisper didn't want me back, but as always, found another team to back up the Brinks truck. This from K. Cousins.
Here's what's interesting about that signing. I have heard, in fact, I think it was Church of Charge. Now, remember, Church of Charge is a Cousins apologist.
He's Cousins' condo co-owner with me.
From the beginning.
Yep.
But, be that as it may, he's also a very knowledgeable football reporter and guy. So he believes it's likely that Cousins will start the opening game of the 2026 regular season for the Raiders. I'll be honest with you, that had not even occurred to me. I assumed that with all the hubbub and all the pedigree involved with the Indiana guy, Mendoza, that the plan for the Raiders, knowing that they've got really nothing at stake, is that we're going to invest and believe in Mendoza from the beginning. But maybe that's a more sensible approach. And the beauty of it with Mendoza is he's not going to demand a trade. I don't think there's any reason to believe he's going to lose his mind if he's not the starter. But isn't that one of the more intriguing questions, whether Cousins was brought in there to compete?
Yeah.
Whether Cousins was brought in to be sort of, the Jedi Knight guy to work with them? Or whether he's flat out saying, I'm going to be the starter, and hopefully the kid will get a chance to play somewhere down the road this season.
I just love the fact that the Raiders Entertainment Network has to do something with those two on the strip somewhere. Like those two just living the Las Vegas life. I call it Hangover 4 on Enough Said tonight, 9:30 on Fox 9 Plus, 10:30 on Fox 9 after multiple sports. Mm-hmm. Don't you want to see those two do something in Vegas? It just seems like such a funny mix.
It is. And they, by the way, are perfectly matched, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you cannot get, from a cultural standpoint, I don't think you could get a better match than those two individuals. But I am very intrigued to see how that goes and how quickly they say to the kid, you're going to be the guy. Maybe maybe the cautionary tale is what happened here. And they said, we're not going to mess with that. Then again, J.J. McCarthy is too busy playing catch
Oh, boy.
with one of the Quins.
Yeah.
Right?
At Yankee Stadium.
At the Yankee Stadium. Do we know what that's about? And was he acting as 9 there? Or was he, who he is the rest of the week?
Simple JJ?
Yeah, Simple JJ.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
It's time for Dr. Dan's Inbox.
Oh, we get letters. We get your letters every day.
Dear Dr. Dan, I admit the 65-game rule isn't the perfect solution, but something needed to change. My inbox is now full of letters from disappointed fans who spent their hard-earned money and time going to a game only to see their favorite players not available due to load management or whatever other reason a team can come up with. Bottom line, players have to play. Is it asking professional athletes paid millions of dollars to play in 65 of 82 games to be considered for postseason awards? Is that too much, Dr. Dan? A. Silver.
No, it shouldn't be too much. And Dr. Dan's been fairly critical of A. Silver, not quite as tough as the legendary D. Stern. But on this one, I have to give A. Silver credit that he isn't curling up in the fetal position despite pressure about, well, these are some guys who don't deserve to lose out on some of these postseason awards. These guys are legitimately hurt, and it's not fair, and we have to redo the system. So far, it appears that A. Silver is standing tall and saying it is what it is. We think overall it's working, and I agree with him. And if, unfortunately, some deserving players lose some honors, I got to have minimum 5 years of evidence that that rule is no longer needed, that we no longer need to implement the 65-game rule. The rule exists not because of the league, not because of fans complaining, but because of players not being out there often enough. Whatever that inner mechanism is that once upon a time demanded that we are paid to play, as Michael Jordan often said, is gone. And until it can be reestablished as automatic, Commissioner has nothing to apologize for.
It's time for Dr. Dan's Inbox.
Oh, we get letters. We get your letters every day.
Dear Dr. Dan, are you sure that last guest was our Pitino? His answers were so measured, and yet I don't think he ripped anyone the whole time, but gave you great, lengthy answers. He sounded like me. Are you sure you didn't get pranked? This from Kay O'Connell. Talking a long time,
Hold
not
on a
ripping
minute.
anybody.
Hold on a minute. First of all, that's PST. Secondly, that's a cheap shot on Richard Pitino. Richard Pitino can fill up an answer
With substance.
but at the end of it, I don't feel like I'm going, what did I just hear? I'm not sure the question got answered. He answers the questions.
Yeah, the next question.
Sorry,
This is
he just
high-level
does. And again,
stuff here.
I love KOC. He's been good to this show. He's affable.
Brought you water the one
Brought
time.
me water. Brought me the fancy water. Who knows what he's probably going to bring me? Hemlock this year. Something poison. I don't know. But so it's not that. It's just that it's a different style. It's a different approach. And no, I think Richard Pitino. I don't think there's word salad with Richard Pitino at all. Now doesn't mean you have to agree with him on everything he said, but I think he gives substantive answers, and that's what I'd like to get a little bit more of from TCO. That's just me.
It's time
I'm a
for
purist.
Dr.
Give a few quick ones.
Dan's
Okay.
Inbox.
Oh, we get letters. We get your letters every day.
Dear Dr. Dan, while XL Energy Center, or XL Energy, may have left us and caused a delay to the Twins, who are already eliminated from playoff contention
Wow.
in the home opener, guess who's in the playoffs? That's right, the team who is truly electric. Not to mention, we have a writer in M. Russo who never has phone issues. That from C. Leopold. From C.
Leopold.
Leopold.
Yeah. Well, that is true. We rarely have Russo phone issues, do we?
Never.
I don't think that's really ever happened.
Never.
So I don't know how to explain it. I don't think there is any explaining L. Neal in that sense. And
He's
now,
one of one.
Let's face it, I think we would be disappointed if we had no phone issues with him. Don't you?
It's weird when we don't.
I think we would be very down about the whole thing. But that's all true. And yes, Dr. Dan cannot wait for the postseason. Cannot wait.
Dear Dr. Dan, you didn't believe us. You thought we were making it up. Maybe now you'll believe us when we tell you we're not making money. Electric bills cost money, Dr. Dan. We scrape by today, but we have a sewer payment coming up tomorrow, and you don't want to know what happens when we can't pay that. That from T. Polad.
Yeah, there have been a lot of this has been it's a low-hanging fruit Friday on the Friday football beast. And what happens then is everybody, when there's the low-hanging fruit of on opening day, home opening day, the Twins suffer a power failure at Target Field. Everybody turns into Shecky Green, whether they're funny or not. And there's a lot of stating the obvious. There's a lot of those kinds of jokes. Some of them are clever. Some of them are not. But I think, sadly, if the truth be told, the Twins are getting exactly what they might expect and what they deserve.
Let me give you this one. Dear Dr. Dan, because everybody has a little bit different twist.
Yes.
Dear
Or at
Dr.
least
Dan,
they think they do.
They're pretty good.
Yeah.
I just don't know what fans expect of us. You can't expect me to pay for both league minimum relievers and the power bill. Like Moneyball, I prefer to keep the money on the field. Why do we need lights for a day game anyway? P.S. This little beer promotion has cost me hundreds, but at least now I can fire the guy who proposed it. That from T. Polad.
I wonder, do we have any idea what, during the season, let's say on a game day, what the power bill is at Target Field?
I have no idea.
There's got to be somebody out there with some inside knowledge there. And I don't want it to be somebody from the Twins because they'll lowball the number. They won't tell us the truth, just like they lowball everything else. Well, no, actually, it'd be the opposite with them. They'd raise it. You're right.
Billions of dollars.
They would inflate it. I wonder what that bill is to power the ballpark on a game day. Now, is there a big difference between powering the ballpark on a game day where there's 3,000 people in the seats compared to 30,000? How much does that raise the bill?
I bet probably not much.
Because you still got to have all the lights on.
Concessions.
Yeah, it's the stuff that might be more used when there's more people there. I don't know.
Water.
Yeah, I guess that would be
the water bill.
Yeah. Toilets used more often?
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
That's what I'm thinking.
Plumbing.
Yes, exactly.
Somebody will tell us.
Last one, the walk-off. Dear Dr. Dan, always ball fake before throwing a pass through defenders. This from CA, the other boozer.
Wow. Well played. Can't argue with it. Here's what we got. We got Ben Gessling at 5:30. We're out at 6 for Minnesota Timberwolves basketball. Guardsy is back with some injury updates on your Wolves club. I'm guessing a little detail on what your Minnesota Wild did last night to clinch.
You got it all.
And who knows what else.
And updates from Target Field.
Oh, even better.